Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku had a calling from the sea part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story Mrotrax from fanfiction. So let's start the video. Not all men are created equal. You should give up. He can't develop a quirk, the doctor had said bluntly and straight to the point as he leaned back in his chair. Little 4-year-old 𝗧𝗵𝗲 dropped his All Might action figure in shock as the doctor dropped the news on him like a 10-ton anvil on his head. Wow. Is there something wrong with him, doctor? His mother, 𝗧𝗵𝗲, asked with a worried tone. Other children his age have already manifested their quirks, but Izuku is the only one in his kindergarten that has yet to show. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 was, of course, annoyed by the doctor's blunt and crass behavior, but pushed through it for her son. The doctor began to explain that by the age of 4, the said child should manifest a quirk that belonged to one of their parents, or a composite of both. During the early years of quirk research, it was found that anyone with a quirk did not have a second joint in the pinky toe. The proximal interphalangeal joint was rather useless in the pinky toe for humans, as it wasn't used. This was used to represent the next stage of evolution. And since Izuku has 2 joints in his pinky toe, the chances of him developing a quirk is 0, no matter how old he is. The doctor concluded. We've had late bloomers before, but I'm sorry to say that your son will never be one of them, ma'am. Crestfallen, 𝗧𝗵𝗄 guided her child back to their apartment, unable to bear the fact her child's dream was shattered. Her husband, Hisashi, was working overseas, so 𝗧𝗵𝗄 called him about Izuku not manifesting his quirk, so Hisashi told his boss he was taking a week off. Fortunately, his boss was understanding, and when he got back home, Hisashi showed his family tickets for a cruise, hoping it would help get Izuku's mind off the troubling news. The following day, the 𝗵𝗲 family was on the cruise and having a good time. Izuku began to steadily cheer up and have fun. Unfortunately, the good times wouldn't last very long. An alarm rang and explosions of water suddenly shot up beside the ship. Everyone inside. The captain ordered, a little too late. A cannonball suddenly sent him flying to his watery grave. From within the ship's halls, the passengers could make out a horrifying sight. A monstrously sized man, bigger than the ship, was trying to destroy a pirate ship. A ship with the Jolly Roger of a skull with a yellow W mustache and a Viking helmet. Izuku would later learn that the giant was 𝗬𝗏, aka the living battleship, and the pirate crew was the dreaded world pirates. 𝗬𝗏 had been sleeping when the ship anchor woke him up, starting a fight. Have no fear. Why? We are here. The worried civilians began to smile as Silky's ship pulled up, and All Might himself leaped in to punch the giant away before blocking an attack from the captain of the world pirates, 𝗵𝘃𝗏. It was the coolest thing Izuku had ever seen as his mother raced with him towards the lifeboats. The greatest hero fighting off a pirate captain and giant with nothing but his fists and a smile on his face. A beaming smile that made others feel at ease. All Might would save them, no worries. Something crashed behind the lifeboats and a scream filled the air. Izuku looked to see a girl his age all by her lonesome, looking around in terror. Mom. Dad. Where are you? Help. Seeing the terrified child lost and in the middle of a war zone with nobody around to help her, Izuku didn't know what had come to him. In an instant, the green-haired boy tore himself from his mother's arms and onto the sinking half of the ship to help the girl, paying everyone else no mind. All that mattered to him at that moment was that she needed help and he could do something. Come with me. Let's go. Unfortunately, before they could return to the lifeboats, 𝗬𝗏 rose from under the ship. Acting as fast as he could, Izuku pushed the girl away to safety as he was sent flying. No. All Might called out, trying to abandon his battle with World to save the boy, but the pirate captain wouldn't allow it, delivering a series of punches that kept the #1 pro hero distracted. And the ship began to fall back to Earth. Silky had his crew tossed a lifesaver for Izuku to catch onto. The sea rescue hero readied to jump in and save the kids himself when another lifeboat suddenly snapped off and the boy fell right inside it, seemingly saved. Only for Wolf to once again send the remnants of the cruiser flying with a giant fist. Luckily, he missed Izuku's boat, but the waves from his movements sent him drifting away. Izuku. Hisashi and 𝗧𝗵𝗄 screamed as their son he saved drifted off into the distance. Devil. After drifting for what felt like hours, Izuku found himself on an island. Dazed and scared from the experience, Izuku stepped onto the beach and looked around before heading into the forest, calling out for anybody who might come and help. "I'm hungry." The greenette sighed, hearing his stomach growl as he found a clearing with a small lake. As he pondered on what to do for food, he noticed a tree in the middle of the clearing, surrounded by beautiful flowers. The tree was large and majestic with spiral patterns all over its bark. Izuku suddenly noticed a single fruit hanging from one of its branches. It was the color of all the rainbows and had the shape of a perfect sphere similar to a cantaloupe, with a stem sprouting out of the top, with swirls that went in a curly S-like pattern. Its overall appearance greatly resembled a 𝗬𝗪𝗡 king. Seeing as there was no other food around, Izuku took the fruit off the branch and bit into it, only to cringe in disgust at the awful bitter taste. Yuck. He spat out what he could and wiped his mouth before suddenly freezing up, seeing strange visions play out in his mind. In the vision, he could see men and women harnessing powers far beyond any quirks he had ever seen. Many could manipulate the elements, transform into fantastic beasts, and harness all sorts of other strange powers such as dividing their bodies into pieces. They could freely control and even manipulate magnetism or stretch their bodies like rubber. 𝗬𝗲𝗺? Izuku said, dazed and confused as his head spun from all the images before passing out. Devil. Rise and shine, brat. The first thing Izuku saw when he opened his eyes was a grinning face. His vision returned to him as he looked to see who it was. He was an elderly man of relatively tall height with a very muscular build and tan skin. Two of his most distinguishing traits were his round glasses and facial hair, arranged embattled across his lower jaw. He also had a scar over his right eye. He wore a large silver-hooded cloak with the hood down over a plain t-shirt, shorts, and sandals. Underneath these clothes, the old man's body was surprisingly built and very well-toned. Izuku knew one thing above all else. Whoever this man was, he was strong and not to be messed with. Despite that, he seemed nice enough, judging by his smile. Izuku Midoriya, I presume? Izuku nodded weakly. How did you? I pay close attention to news and we're pretty darn close to World Journalism. Oh, goodness. Where are my manners? Sorry, kiddo. Seems my mind is going after all. The old man smiled as he gave a gentlemanly bow. Silver's Rayleigh at your service. Retired pirate hero and freelance costume designer at your service. Now, I reckon you're tired and hungry, right? Why, yeah. Izuku said, his stomach growling. Well, first things first. Welcome to my humble abode here at 𝗬𝗵𝗄 Archipelago. A little slice of heaven, if I do say so myself. Izuku noticed out the nearby window that bubbles were floating everywhere. He gazed in wonder before a tall and beautiful woman with short black hair. Oh, the kid's awake, huh? She smiled, a cigarette in hand. That is my wife, 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗪. Rayleigh beamed in pride. She owns this bar. And speaking of hungry, you didn't happen to take a bite from a spiraled fruit earlier, did you? Izuku's eyes widened and worry filled him, before the old man burst out laughing. No worries, kiddo. Besides that fruit? It was the devil fruit. Rayleigh explained. Something my late friend, 𝗬𝗪𝗪 found, a fruit that supposedly held the powers of an entire world at the beck and call of whoever ate it. Izuku's eyes widened. Then I have a quirk? Nope, Rayleigh said, popping the pea as he poured himself a drink. Quirks are born in you. What have you got? If you put the work in, pretty much any power under the sun. So I can be a hero? Izuku asked. You already are, with what you did on that ship. Besides, Roger didn't have a quirk and he did amazing things. Rayleigh retorted. Whoever tells you that you need a quirk is an idiot. I mean, look at me, pushing 70 and strong enough to whoop beasts like nothing. No superpowers, no quirk, just training. And money from costume design. Shaki added. Rayleigh rolled his eyes. And money from costume design, yes. Whoa, so cool. Izuku whispered, stars in his eyes as Rayleigh chuckled and ruffled his fluffy bush of green hair. I can see you're enthusiastic, kiddo. Not a lot of people remember me, to be honest. I prefer a remote lifestyle these days. But you can talk about the past once you've had something in your belly. What do you like, little hero? Shaki asked Izuku. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 Izuku asked, smiling when the lovely woman prepared his favorite dish along with some juice. Master, I heard about that boy who was shipwrecked. Is he okay? A voice came as a young boy who appeared to be Izuku's age came in, but he was quite different from normal boys. He had yellow skin and light blue eyes with white pupils. He wore blue and yellow armor that seemed like a bug's carapace almost, complete with yellow shoulder spikes, and a blue helmet that covered the top half of his head and over his eyes that had yellow spikes on it. All in all, he looked like a sort of robot, yet also organic. Shaken but otherwise okay. Rayleigh smiled at the boy, then remembering that his guest was from the civilized world. Man, I really am losing my senses. Izuku, this is Marco Nui. Marco gave a bow to Izuku, who bowed back from his seat. Do you have some kind of robot quirk? Izuku asked, trying to not sound rude. Marco chuckled at that. If I had a yen barrier dollar for all the times I've been asked that, I'd have 3 of them. Which isn't much and really should be higher. But no, not a robot quirk. Also, good thing you're sitting for the explanation. Shaki then came in, giving Izuku a warm plate of katsudon and grilled fish for Marco. We found Marco here in a pod that landed not too far away. He's basically an alien prince. Still don't like that description. Marco mused, looking to Izuku. Where I come from, the eldest and wisest are our leaders. He's demigod among his people. Rayleigh explained. His father is what one could consider a god among them, and his mother was a conspiracy/alien theorist. Again, do not really like that description. Marco winced, then spied the awestruck look on Izuku's face. Honestly, while Izuku was surprised, considering he'd just eaten a fruit that gave him a bajillion powers, he wasn't too surprised. So, how would you describe it? Izuku inquired, making Marco smile. Well, my father, Madanui, is the first and greatest hero of 𝗧𝗵𝗲, the world we call home. Marco explained. Long story short, he was also the able, as you humans call it, to a certain someone. The way Marco spoke, no one dared press him for more details. Who took over and enveloped 𝗧𝗵𝗲 into chaos after putting him out of commission. My father eventually freed himself and with the help of others inspired by him, took our planet back. Along the way, he met my mother, Kiina. And despite everything, or maybe because of it in Mom's case, well, I came along. I'm technically the first child of 𝗧𝗵𝗲, at least in the eyes of humanity. This left Izuku with many questions, but they were cut short by the sound of chirping. A small beetle-like creature appeared on Marco's shoulder, hopping up and down before pouncing on Izuku and nestling into his fluffy green hair. Oh, that's my buddy Click. Seems he likes you. Marco smiled as Izuku giggled bashfully. Devil. After a few days of eating and resting, so Izuku could properly recover from his harrowing experience, Rayleigh brought him to the neighboring island of Egghead, Marco tagging along as well. Hey Rayleigh-san, what even is Egghead? Izuku asked. The old man smirked. It's like Island where all the bigwig scientists make their fancy support items, but Vegapunk is way beyond any of those tinker toys. And as they got closer, the boy believed him. Cybernetic sea monsters and other robots, amazing machines, and wildlife. It was like something out of a Roald Dahl book. Sugoi. Yeah, it's cool, huh? Marco smiled, Click chirping excitedly. After docking, they made their way up towards the tallest tower on the island, Izuku marveling at all he saw for as long as he could before Rayleigh scooped him up and carried him to a door. Sorry, kiddo. No time for sightseeing. He then knocked on the door. Hey, Doc. You available? Rayleigh then noticed the door was unlocked and opened it, only for a hand to be aimed at his head, the hand flipping open to reveal a cannon of sorts. The owner of the literal hand cannon was a young girl who seemed to be the same age as Izuku. She had soft features and stark white skin with a faint blue tint to contrast with the pink tattoos on her neck, stomach, and right thigh that read, PK Dick. She also seemed to be cybernetic as she had machine-like lines around her eyes, which were red with yellow circles for pupils. Oh hey old man. What's going on? Everything good? Nothing much, Rebecca. Rayleigh responded, remained unfazed even with the gun to his head, which only served to freak Izuku out. You get used to it. Marco sighed when he noticed the boy's concern. What's up, chum? You need something. We need to see the document. This kid here needs help. Rayleigh explained calmly, gesturing to Izuku. Rebecca sighed before turning around. Yo, Shakala. The doc needs to see these guys. A tall man with a robot helmet for a head walked in. Izuku couldn't help but be reminded of a certain musician his dad listened to. Please come this way. Shaka motioned. The doctor will be along shortly. The three followed Shaka inside as an elderly man in a lab coat descended the stairs. He had a bushy mustache and a long, goofy tongue, but what most stood out was his head, easily double his size. My goodness, Rayleigh. You didn't tell me you'd be here so soon. Nice to see you too, Doc. Rayleigh smirked before taking something out. Oh, is Pilar here? I got that thing he wanted. I'll call him. Rebecca groaned. Yo, bro. It's for you. An older man slid in. He was tall and had a lean, muscled frame with black hair styled in a mohawk and a beard. He had golden robotic hands and cybernetic goggles and wore a black sleeveless vest with a pair of jeans. What? He gruffly asked. Rayleigh got that thing for ya. Come get it. Rebecca huffed. It's here. The man, Pilar by the looks of it, beamed as he snatched the thing from Riku, inspecting it in his metal hands. Top of the line, baby. Yep. Quality telekill alloy. Lace that with your hands and you can punch through even the toughest quirk. As Pilar enjoyed himself, Rayleigh and Vegapunk were busy discussing things from the side. So the boy ate the devil fruit, Rayleigh nodded and placed Izuku down, allowing Vegapunk to take a good look at him. A kind and clever mind and already brave. I can live with such a child eating it. I'm sorry for that, sir. Izuku tried to apologize. Oh, don't be. You eating it saved me and others here a lot of trouble. My sponsors wanted me to make an army of those, but with the only usable one already eaten? Well, even they are hesitant to murder children, sometimes. To distract Izuku from realizing what this meant, he messed with Izuku's hair and smiled warmly. What kind of quirk do you have? Is it an apple head mutation? Izuku asked, pointing to the top half of his head, which seemed to be replaced with the top half of an apple connected to a brown stick. The doctor just laughed. That's a new one. Apple-powered. While my meta ability is a mutant type, it doesn't have anything to do with apples. He then cleared his voice as he began to explain. My meta ability is Big Brain. It allows me to store an infinite amount of knowledge. However, doing so places stress on my brain and could kill me, so I created punk records as well as my satellites, which hold knowledge based on certain emotions. So cool, Izuku said, looking at the large device with awe. And please, dear boy, never address superpowers as quirks in my presence. I refuse to call them that. Makes them sound. Vegapunk paused to stifle a shudder. Anyways, what can I do for you, Rayleigh? Well, for one thing, Izuku is gonna need that book you wrote, Rayleigh said. Here I come with it. Enclunked in a large humanoid robot, one that looked like a wind-up toy, carrying a book that he handed to the professor. Thank you, Pythagoras. Vegapunk smiled as he handed Izuku the book. We also need to find a way to get the kids back home, Rayleigh said. Of course, considering how you've worked to keep yourself and your science team secluded, it may take a while to get a proper boat for them. That is true. Vegapunk hummed. Dorothy. Mayto. Yes, doctor? Two rather beautiful women stepped in. The first had porcelain pale skin, red hair, black eyes, and a black dress. The other had lovely blonde hair, long eyelashes, and brown eyes. She wore a dark dress and coat with fur around the neck, along with boots and an astrakhan hat. Make sure the boy is well fed and tended to. Rayleigh and I need to discuss some things. Devil. For the past 5 hours, Izuku had sat down and begun reading the book of devil fruits. Rebecca and Marco sat with him, looking over his shoulders to see what all the fruits could do. Logia, Paramecia, Zoan. Geez, there are so many subcategories for the Zoans. Rebecca said. Yeah, the doc likes to categorize, Rayleigh said as he chugged down some sake. My dad encountered a few of these devil fruits back a long time ago, Marco noted. Suddenly, the sound of crashing and banging was heard as everyone looked to see what was going on. Dr. Vegapunk let out a sigh and shook his head. Oh dear, what am I going to do with those kids? What they saw were 7 children, all with tan skin, yellow eyes, and most notably, black angel-like wings and plumes of fire on their backs. They seemed to be causing trouble for a young girl who seemed to be a giant of some kind, as well as a blonde woman with headphones and a sultry-looking young lady with orange hair. "Kids!" Vegapunk barked as the seven stopped the mischief they were doing and stood to attention. "Yes, Grandpa? What have I taught you about how to conduct yourself around newcomers? Leave nothing for CP9? Okay, correction." Vegapunk nodded. "What did I tell you about newcomers your age? To let us see them first," they all said in unison tiredly. "Apologies for them." Vegapunk chuckled as he turned to Izuku. "Meet the Seraphim, 𝗧𝗵𝗲, 𝗧𝒃, 𝗧𝒃, 𝗧𝗵𝗲, 𝗧𝗏𝗍, 𝗧𝒏, and 𝗧𝒃. Grandpa, we have names. 𝗬𝗵𝗲. Oh, right." Vegapunk apologized sheepishly. Respectively, the names they have given themselves are Makoto, Yato, Chikara, Kahaku, Sumiko, Shun, and Kanzuya. While they all had the same skin, eyes, and wings, the seven each had unique features to differentiate themselves from each other. 𝗬𝗏, Makoto, had a rather childish appearance with messy blonde hair, a rather toned build under his clothes, and a dragon tattoo carved at the top of his left bicep, just below his shoulder. His flame plume was colored pure white. 𝗧𝒃 Yato was a bit taller than the others and had a slouched posture. His hair was short, spiky, and colored pale blue, and he had thin black eyebrows. On the left side of his jaw and extending down to his neck, he had a large scar, and a tattoo of a fox was carved on the left side of his waist. His flame plume was colored crimson red. 𝗧𝗏 Chikara looked like a young boy, even more childish in appearance than Makoto. He had a high forehead and thin eyebrows, and was carrying a spiral-marked pillow. A tattoo of a grizzly bear was marked just above his left ankle, on the outer side of his lower leg. His flame plume was colored a forest green. Kahaku was much taller than everyone else, almost akin to a giant. However, she had a very cute and fair appearance. She had medium-length brown hair which was tied up into large twin tails. A tattoo of a snake was marked on her left outer thigh. Her flame plume was colored caramel brown. 𝗧𝗏𝗏 looked the most childish out of everyone next to Chikara. She had black shoulder-length hair, 3 beauty marks below her right eye, and on the left side of her neck was a tattoo of a boar. Her flame plume was colored bright blue. 𝗧𝗏 Shun had an androgynous appearance and magenta hair that reached just past his jaw. Over his eyes was a pair of light-framed glasses, and on the right side of his chest was a tattoo of a goat. His flame plume was colored pink. Finally, 𝗬𝗏 Kanzuya had a very scrawny appearance with a shy demeanor to him. He had short brown hair and a gentle smile on his face. On his back was a tattoo of a lion. His flame plume had the traditional orange color. "These precocious little brats are part of the doc's latest project," Rebecca said. "You're a precocious brat yourself, Becca," Rayleigh smirked, ruffling the cybernetic girl's head. "Hey, eat a dick, old man." "Language. We have guests," Vegapunk scolded. "Honestly, your brother is a terrible influence on you." "Hey, Marco." "Who's this?" Kahaku asked when she noticed Izuku. "Oh, this is Izuku. We rescued him when he washed up on the beach," Marco introduced, patting the other boy on the back as he nervously waved. Makoto smiled as he walked up to Izuku and shook his hand excitedly. "Pleasure to meet ya. You all heard our names, and I think I heard someone call you Asuka? Yes. And nice tea to meet you." Izuku stuttered, shaking from the aggressive handshaking. "He seems unsure." Shun mused. "So many powers. No wonder he's unsure, Shun," Chikara smirked. "At least he has a good head on his shoulders." Kanzuya mused. "He'd be fun to wrestle." Yato cheered. "What about me?" Marco asked, tapping his foot. "No offense, Marco, but you get a little too aggressive." Izuku smiled weakly, not used to all this praise but liking it all the same. "Gotta say, Doc, not much resemblance between you and the kids," Rayleigh noted. "And there is a reason for that. Have you ever heard of the 7 deadly sins?" Izuku was silent. "The legendary knights." More silence. "The big names before King Arthur?" Even more silence. "Oh, what do they teach you kids nowadays?" Vegapunk screamed to the heavens, only to grimace in pain. "Who?" By Oda. I am out of shape on this whole angry thing. I'm in preschool. Izuku managed. I'm from another planet. Marco added. Okay, long story short. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 cleared his throat as he began to tell his tale. Better sit down, kid. This is a real doozy. Rayleigh smirked as 𝗵𝗃𝗃 started. Long, long ago, before noble knights and chivalry truly bloomed, the world was overwhelmed by demons and monsters. Eventually, a group made up of members from all races was formed to bring some order to the chaos. And they succeeded, eventually, although apparently, they were all murderously cruel and violent. I say apparently because most of what we do know of them comes from propaganda-like messages. But anyways, thanks to that warmongering idiot Judge 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗏, I was able to acquire their lineage factor. You mean DNA? Izuku asked. No, 𝗵𝗃𝗃 said flatly before continuing. I was able to clone them back, and I grew to love them as if they were my own. Oh, Gramps. Sumiko and Kahaku giggled happily. A touching story, but we still gotta help out these kids. Rayleigh pointed out, gesturing to Izuku. Right, we'll discuss ideas on how to get the kids back. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 nodded, seeing Marco sparring with Makoto and Yato as Izuku asked the others about their quirks. Devil. Unbeknownst to everyone, one of 𝗵𝗃𝗃's satellites, the blonde girl with headphones known as York, had slipped away and was preparing to make a call. Unlike her fellow satellites, York was out for number one, i.e. herself. And this was the perfect chance to try and make a deal with the old men. The right hand of Roger himself? A bunch of incredibly powerful kids? The chance of finally being free of 𝗵𝗃𝗃 and the others? Hell, if she paid her cards right, she could become a world noble. I wouldn't do that if I were you. York was brought out of her musings and froze, and the sight of Shaki smoking a cigarette as she walked on the broken bodies of several guards. I like those kids. And Ray, for all his faults, is my dear beloved husband. And he likes them. So you have a choice. Die right here and now when you try to call, or live to see a new age and weigh your options. What's it going to be? Not trusting herself to speak and deciding she liked living more than she was willing to risk it all to be free, York gulped and backed away. Good girl. Shaki patted her head. Also, I was never here. York blinked and then, true to her word, Shaki was nowhere to be seen. Oi, the doc wants to see a gorgeous. Pilar smirked as he walked up to York, playfully smacking her behind and making her yelp, a blush spreading across her face. Pilar. Yeah. Keep my hands to myself. Pilar chuckled, holding his upgraded metal hands up. But I had to test out the new alloy. Devil. Izuku had bonded quite well with Marco, Rebecca, and the Seraphim, who hadn't gotten to know anybody aside from the people on Egghead. Heck, only Rayleigh and Shaki had been the ones outside of the island to meet them before. Izuku felt an especially close camaraderie with Sumiko, mostly due to the fact she indulged in his analytical smarts and even bounced ideas off with him. Just because the Seraphim had lived on Egghead for as long as they've currently been alive didn't mean they were uninformed of the rest of the world. Before the kids were ready to hit the hay after enjoying some good food and merriment, Rayleigh finally sat Izuku down and made him an offer. Considering that you ate the devil fruit, I feel like you need to be able to learn how to properly harness what you can do now. The Dark Knight explained. However, I can see a lot of camaraderie forming between you and 𝗵𝗃𝗃's brats already. Reminds me of my days with Roger. Indeed, Roger was the original #1 pro hero before All Might inherited the title, Shaka said, having been observing nearby. And from what I've been reading in the news, heroes have been getting stale and soft, Rayleigh said. So that's why I feel like it's time to make a new generation of heroes willing to do what they do best for the sake of freedom and joy, just like Roger did in his day. You want to train Izuku? Can we train with him too? Makoto asked. I mean, we are pretty strong, but it'd be kind of nice to have a new face around. I don't want to say goodbye to Izuku. Kahaku said, fighting back tears. Me neither. Chikara joined in. It would be a shame to bid Izuku farewell when we've only just gotten to be his friends, Sumiko added, then looked to her side. Shun. Okay, I'd miss him too, Shun sighed. But this is Izuku's choice. Let's see what he says. Rayleigh knelt to the green-haired boy. Izuku, if you can make it through this training, you can get through anything, but that means this will be hell. Rayleigh warned. You will be tired, broken, hungry, and constantly need to improve. You will emerge from my training at the level of a pro hero, maybe even All Might himself, but once we start there is no going back. It's not too late. Vegapunk can radio for a pickup and send you home. Selkie is in the area. Dr. Vegapunk noted. Izuku looked worried but then mulled over his options. He could go home and have no way of properly honing his powers, or he could stay, and while he wouldn't be able to see his family again for who knows how long, he'd at least be able to come back stronger and prepared. After making his decision, he smiled and turned to face Rayleigh. Rayleigh-sensei, I'll accept. I'll get super strong and find a way back home. Then we'll become the greatest heroes ever. And we'll help so you won't have to feel lonely. Makoto and his siblings all smiled. Something tells me this is the start of a beautiful friendship. Marco beamed, clicked chirping in agreement. You're all right in my book, Chummy. Rebecca chuckled. Maybe I can join in. Feels like I could do for some upgrades. I do know my way around the labs. Rebecca and Pilar do constantly seek to improve the cybernetics grandfather gave them. Sumiko smiled. Rayleigh smiled as he turned to Vegapunk, who nodded his head in approval. These kids are something else, I tell ya. I have a good feeling about them. 10 long years had passed for Izuku and his newfound friends as they trained under Rayleigh's brutal yet surprisingly fair training. He did indeed warn them that it would be hell on earth, after all. As Izuku grew, he learned that his devil fruits didn't become stronger, he just became more creative with them. This helped him come up with new ideas on how to harness them, which Dr. Vegapunk approved of and documented whenever he could. Marco was able to harness the elements of his home planet, which narrowed down to manipulating fire, water, earth, air, ice, stone, gravity, iron, lightning, magnetism, plant life, sonics, psionics, plasma, light, and shadow. He was most proficient in the water element, since that was the one his mother was able to harness. Click could also transform into a shield, and Marco also had a sword inherited from his father, both of which he could transfer his elements through. Rebecca, due to being one of Egghead's inhabitants, had access to cybernetic upgrades that she built into herself whenever she had the chance. She and her brother had come from an impoverished family that tried to sell them to pirates for a hefty sum of money, only to be killed in the process. It was by a miracle that the pirates' ship was totaled and they washed up on Egghead. It helped that her quirk, technopathy, which allowed her to freely modify any form of technology she was in contact with, also extended to her cybernetics. As for the Seraphim, thanks to their lineage factor, they also inherited the powers of the 7 deadly sins, not just their likeness. Makoto wielded the power of Meliodas, Yato the skills of Ban, Chikara got the magic of King Harlequin, Shun the mental prowess and powers of Gauther, Kazuya the fiery strength of Escaner, Kahaku the mighty earth powers of Diana, and Sumiko the true magic of Merlin, who it turns out was a woman. The kids had also learned how to harness the spiritual force known as Haki, which was basically like the Force from Star Wars but in 3 separate flavors. Observation Haki allowed those who used it to sense the presence, strength, and emotions of others, as well as, if one trained enough, to see into the future for a couple of seconds. Armament Haki allowed those with it to coat their body or even objects on their person in a black coating that granted them enhanced strength and defense. It also was how Izuku had built up most of his durability, as it was the one surefire way the others could hit him even with the powers of the devil fruit that otherwise made him intangible. Finally, Conqueror's Haki could only be used by a select few individuals, those who had the willpower of a king. Rayleigh himself had this type of Haki, and after much training, Izuku learned that he possessed it as well. There had briefly been a bit of drama among the kids with this reveal, as Yato, Makoto, and Kazuya didn't want to settle for leadership under one. Rayleigh had then explained that Conqueror's Haki didn't make Izuku a king/badass by default. It was more a sign that he was, if he was willing to train and work for it, going to become something extraordinary. That everyone could live with. Devil. On the beach of Sabadui Archipelago, a modest straw house sat. Inside the house, sleeping in a hammock, was a now 14-year-old Izuku Midoriya. Thanks to Rayleigh's training, Izuku had developed a lean, fit build with finely toned abs and definitive muscles. These muscles were able to be deceptively hidden underneath clothing, and Izuku still had a cute freckled baby face and a bush of emerald green hair. Waking up and yawning, Izuku rubbed the sleep from his eyes and made a mild breakfast consisting of scrambled eggs, bacon, and buttered toast. After finishing his food, he heard a knock on his door and went to answer it, seeing Marco, Rebecca, and the Seraphim waiting for him. "Izuku, it's time." Marco smiled, looking much taller and slender, but still having a very fit appearance. "Mornin', chum." Rebecca smiled, having grown slightly taller and more mature, but still had a bit of a childish appearance. That and she was dwarfed by most of the others, with only 𝗧𝗫𝗏 being the same height as her. Makoto still had a bit of a childish appearance, and 𝗧𝗫𝗏 himself looked virtually unchanged from how he was 10 years ago. Sumiko had seen the biggest change, now looking like a seductress with pink lipstick and a buxom figure. Now if only there were others I'm not related to who would apricot me. She'd always smirk. Yato was still the tallest of the Seraphim, his body lanky yet muscular. 𝐭𝐸𝐲 still looked like a skinny, shy young man, but that merely hid the power he contained whenever he basked in the sun's rays. Kahaku had a cute, curvy figure looking the perfect blend of adorable and sexy. Shun, like 𝗧𝗫𝗏, remained unchanged, except he did have a bit more muscle on him at the least. It was quite a hectic life, but a fun one all the same, training and sparring, hunting and pranking. There was the brief period Kahaku and 𝗧𝗫𝗏 had been dirty-minded between their siblings. No one liked to talk about those days. And the time Shun's meta ability led to them all learning about where babies came from in the worst, or best, in Makoto's eyes, possible. And the time 𝗧𝗫𝗏 had briefly become Lord of the Beasts, and in a maddened with supposed power rush, sicked all the females on Izuku when he'd accidentally stuck himself in his Zoan forms. And the time they all swapped genders thanks to the hormone power, just to prove which sex had it rougher. Spoiler, it was a tie. And when Sumiko, Marco, Kahaku almost being kidnapped by incompetent slave traders. Oh! And who could forget when the kids had turned half of the archipelago into winter wonderlands and the other half into deserts? Or when Marco and Rebecca went on the run for a few weeks when Pilar thought they were dating. But despite it all, the kids were the best of friends. They were nakama, a word Rayleigh had taught them. Deeper than blood, bonded through training. Devil. You brats, you've been training for 10 straight years now. I dare say you can take on the world and win now. Rayleigh said, pride in his voice. Now, I think you have earned the right to set sail. The 10 young teens were brought to a fancy-looking ship that could support all of them and had plenty of accommodations to make their trip a pleasant one. It looked to be a mix of Vegapunk and Rayleigh's designs. The doc and I put this together for your maiden voyage. Don't forget to write to us, okay? We shall also be accompanying you, Dorothy said as she and Maytel stepped in, along with Pilar. The doctor wants us to keep watch over future progress. We're gonna miss you, old man. Yato cried as he, Izuku, Marco, and Makoto hugged the dark night, sobbing manly tears all the while as he comforted them, a lone tear running down his face. I'll make you proud, master. Marco sniffed. Vegapunk was in tears because he couldn't bid farewell to you himself, Rayleigh added. Stupid Caesar and his stupid ruining of an island. 𝗧𝗫𝗏 mumbled, 𝗭𝐚𝐲 patting his shoulder. He left you a message on the ship with his goodbyes on it, the old man said. I know I don't have to say it, but look out for each other and have fun. After some more tearful farewells, Izuku and his friends boarded the ship, 𝗭𝐚𝐲 taking the wheel while Izuku sat in the crow's nest, raising a flag that he and Shun had designed together. Let's go, Captain. Makoto called as Izuku pointed ahead. You got it, Mako-chan. Next stop, Mizudafu, Japan. As the ship sailed ahead, Dorothy sat down in front of a piano and began to play a melodious tune, Maytel joining her with a violin. As the kids waved Rayleigh goodbye while their ship floated further and further away, they all began to sing, tears in their eyes. Yo-ho-ho-ho, 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 yo-ho-ho-ho. Gather up all of the crew. It's time to ship out Binks Brew. Sea wind blows. To where? Who knows? The waves will be our guide. O'er across the ocean's tide, rays of sunshine far and wide. Birds they sing of cheerful things, in circles passing by. Dorothy's normally stoic face let out a tiny, invisible smile while Maytel gently closed her eyes, continuing the melody. Bid farewell to Weaver's Town. Say so long to Port Renowned. Sing a. Song, it won't be long before we're casting off. Cross the gold and silver seas. The salty spray puts us at ease. Day and night to our delight. The voyage never ends. Makoto and Yato slung their arms around each other and began kicking their feet in rhythm while Kahaku and Rebecca swung their arms back and forth cheerfully. Pilar laughed as he raised a mug of ale into the air with a cheer. Gather up all of the crew. It's time to ship out Binks brew. Pirates we, eternally are challenging the sea, with the waves to rest our heads. Ship beneath us as our beds. Hoisted high upon the mast our jolly Roger flies. Somewhere in the endless sky, stormy winds are blowing by. Waves are dancing, evening comes. It's time to sound the drums. But steady men may never fear. Tomorrow's skies are always clear. So pound your feet and clap your hands till sunny days return. Yo-ho-ho-ho, 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 yo-ho-ho-ho. Izuku tapped his foot, nodding his head and smiling at the joyful singing of his friends before singing a few of the lyrics himself. Gather up all of the crew. It's time to ship out Binks brew. Wave goodbye, but don't you cry. Our memories remain. Our days are but a passing dream, everlasting though they seem. Beneath the moon we'll meet again. The wind's our lullaby. He then wiped away his tears and smiled, opening his arms for a group hug that the others happily gave. Gather up all of the crew. It's time to ship out Binks brew. Sing a song and play along. For all the oceans wide. After all is said and done, you'll end up a skeleton. So spread your tail, from dawn till dusk, upon these foamy seas. Yo-ho-ho-ho, 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 yo-ho-ho-ho. Devil. It took 4 days of sailing for Izuku's crew to reach Japan. Izuku smiled as he recognized the city before him, but frowned when he saw the trash built up on Dagobah Municipal Beach. This wasn't here when I left. What have people been doing since I was gone? He asked himself as he slid down the crow's nest. This beach leaves something to be desired. Sumiko noted, wrinkling her nose in disgust. Damn. The hell have people been doing since we've been away? Pilar gawked. If I'd known this would greet us, I'd have stayed on Egghead. Rebecca frowned. This is indeed an unpleasant sight. Clearly, people have not been recycling. Chikara added. You said it. Marco muttered, Click letting out a disgusted chirp. After docking their ship and planning to clean up the whole darn beach and make it look presentable, Izuku headed to a nearby bank to get money for his crew to accommodate themselves. Are you saying you'd like to open a new bank account? The manager asked. Izuku nodded in affirmation before pulling out 9 different gemstones that Shaki had left him in case of something like this. A diamond, a pearl, a ruby, an emerald, a yellow sapphire, a cat's eye, a blue sapphire, a coral, and a hessonite garnet. He also brought out 12 gold bars. How did you find these? The manager asked in amazement. They were all gifts a friend gave me for a situation like this. Izuku smiled. So, how much will that be in the account? The manager had to take some time to count everything up before showing how much money Izuku gained because of his donations. The boy's eyes widened in amazement at how many zeros he was seeing before smiling and nodding. Thank you very much, sir. The manager nodded. No, thank you. Devil. Keep going, Kazuya. Sumiko cheered. This feels rather basic, Kazuya noted. Right now, Kazuya was no longer the shy-looking skinny boy he was before. Now, he was much taller and more muscular, his body rivaling All Might himself in size and muscle. This was thanks to his lineage factor inheriting sunshine, the power of the lion's sin of pride, Escaner. Currently, Kazuya was pulling a large fridge with a rope using just one hand while Sumiko rode on it. Heave-ho, heave-ho, heave-ho. Shun huffed and puffed as he pulled a TV along the beach. You children are making steady progress, Dorothy noted. That's 75% of the beach clean and it's only the afternoon. Izuku arrived back to see his friends were all working together and cleaning up the beach. Hibiki and Rebecca worked to haul a broken safe to the garbage truck that had been called in. Correction, 80% now. Hey guys, I managed to get us a bank account with some of the treasure Mrs. Shaki gave us before we left. Izuku smiled, handing each of them a debit card. When this beach is all cleaned up, we're making this our home. Yeah, I doubt any home in the big city can contain us. Yato chuckled as he was working on the ship's grill, cooking lunch for everyone. Smells good, Kahaku beamed, sniffing what the Seraphim of Greed was cooking up. We've all been working pretty hard today. Let's take a break and grab some grub. Makoto suggested with a smile as everyone did just that. Maytel even brought out some drinks for the kids to enjoy. Devil. 2 weeks had passed, and Dagobah Municipal Beach had become resort-worthy again. Dorothy and Maytel had managed to get in touch with a construction company that was in desperate need of work called 𝗬𝗪𝐽𝐻 Construction. The family was grateful to be given work to do, and even more grateful for the hefty payment they were given afterward. As for Pilar, he had made contact with a rather sleazy yet affable fellow named Jiren, who was more than happy to provide certain goods and services if anybody needed them. Izuku and Sumiko had gone out to get groceries together, as it had quickly become clear that they were the best to do so. Chikara had already gotten in trouble for floating 3 times with people confusing it for a quirk. Koko tended to be a little over-emotional and touchy. Shun made cashiers and clerks cry with his bluntness and depending on the time of day when it happened. Kazuya would pummel anyone who so much as looked at Sumiko, or take too long due to his inherent kindness. And the last time the gang trusted Yato and Makoto? 4 days ago. Yato, did you read the map wrong? Makoto asked, the two of them somehow ending up in Kamino Ward. A loud burp filled the air. There on the ground lay Yato, empty grocery bags around him and food smeared all over his mouth and now comically sized belly. Mother, we're out of food. All of it. That was a month's worth. And some of it was frozen and for cleaning. No worries, Maki. We're rich. Yato, suddenly thin and on his feet, smirked. Thank Horikoshi, Oda, and Nakaba we are. Present day. As they were walking home, they went under a street pass near the river. As they were leaving, a gurgling noise caught their attention. Turning around, they saw a man made of dark green sludge rising behind them. A couple of good-looking meat suits. Hold still, brats. I just need one of your bodies. Oh hell no. Izuku said as the sludge man lunged out tentacles of his body to try and grab him, but he casually dodged them all thanks in part to his observation hockey. How the hell are you dodging so fast? The sludge man snapped before turning to Hibiki. Fine, I'll just take this bitch then. Sorry, but I'm not in the mood for this. Sumiko scowled as she lifted up a finger. Endless whirl. Before the sludge villain could react, he was scooped up in a giant sphere of wind, unable to stay in a consistent shape as the wind spun him around. We should find something to contain him and send him over to the nearest police station, Sumiko suggested, Izuku nodding as he prepared to find something to put the sludge villain in when the nearby manhole cover was suddenly blasted off of where it was. And a hero Izuku was very familiar with, even after all these years leaped out. There's no need to fear for I am. I guess I'm somehow late. All Might. Izuku gawked in disbelief, his fanboy side unearthing itself to gaze in revered splendor. Whoa, so that's what he looks like. Sumiko muttered. I was chasing this villain, but apparently you've incapacitated him. How did you even manage it exactly? Just a little magic trick. Sumiko smiled. I'm not gonna get in trouble for keeping that creep off me and Izuku's backs, right? Well, I can let this slide. After all, even though it's illegal to use quirks all willy-nilly, it's perfectly fine as long as it's in self-defense or in the aid of another. All Might noted as he took an empty soda bottle and stuffed the sludge villain in it. Anyway, I'm off to put this 𝐒𝐻𝗪𝙁 somewhere where he can't harm anyone else. Have a good day. With that, the symbol of peace leaped off. As he watched his hero leave, Izuku suddenly realized something very important. I forgot to ask for his autograph. That's what you're worried about? Sumiko asked with a raised brow. Devil. While Izuku and Sumiko had been getting groceries and meeting the boys' idol, Marco, Rebecca, and the rest of the Seraphim had decided to walk around, just touring the town. Marco was by far the most interested in the city, the others cheekily explaining things to him, explaining to any passers-by that he was a foreign exchange student from a third-world country. I mean, he really kind of is. Rebecca noted. Nah, I'd say Spherus Magna is a mix of Egghead and a nature park on planetary scale. Chikara argued. Hey look. Marco beamed, pointing to a sign. A sign that Sumiko smiled at when she saw it. Well, we've been exploring all day, she mused. How about we take a break and try out the hot springs? Yes, please. Kahaku beamed, Shun shrugging while Makoto and Kazuya smiled in excitement. Suddenly, a strange whispering sound echoed through the walls. The group got on guard as they slowly began to make out what the sound was. It sounded like singing. Is it a ghost? Kahaku squeaked fearfully. Click's getting some bad vibes here. Marco noted, holding his companion close as Click shivered fearfully. Hold on, I know that song. Yato put a hand to his ear. Yeah, that's Bink's brew. Wow, this ghost has good taste in music, Shun noted calmly. Don't even joke like that, Shun. Kahaku cried. The seven looked around, wondering where the melody was coming from until Rebecca spotted something. What the hell? It was a humanoid figure making its way through the water toward the seven. Kahaku shrieked and hid behind Rebecca, which was hilarious given their size difference, while the others prepared to fight until they got a better look at the figure. They had white hair with a black undercut, pink eyes, and black and white skin with skeletal-like markings. There was a pink shape in the middle of their chest shaped like a heart, and their nails were a matching pink. Oh, hello there. They greeted in a friendly tone. Thanks for stopping by. It gets a bit lonely around here, mostly because people tend to think the place is haunted. Whoa, who are you? Yato exclaimed. Are you some kind of Grim Reaper? Well, I'll be a monkey's uncle. Chikara muttered. Pleasure to meet you. Milo Belladonna. They slashed them pronouns, if you please. The being said in a friendly tone before noticing Rebecca and Kahaku and smiling flirtatiously. Well. The Reaper approached the two girls, Rebecca arching an eyebrow while Kahaku still looked nervous. Would you perhaps be so kind as to show me your panties? Yeah, right. Rebecca shouted as she delivered a punch to the Reaper's face, sending them dunking straight into the water. Hee, feisty. They laughed as they resurfaced. Sorry about that, but I just can't help but admire such beautiful women. Apologies for sounding rude. Maybe don't introduce yourself with that, Kahaku said, blushing slightly. Makoto simply walked over and bowed in reverence to Milo, a fellow being of culture. Thank you. Milo smirked before motioning the others to join them for a soak. 3 hours later. Oh wow, we needed this. Yato smiled as the boys dried off. Well, Chikara, Makoto, and Kazuya did. Marco just willed himself dry as the girls finished up their soak. And speaking of whom, Kazuya noted something. Where is Makoto? The shortest Seraphim had doubled back to look for Milo, finding them humming Bink's brew, but now with a sadder tone in their voice. You okay? Makoto asked, startling Milo, although they played it cool. Oh, Makoto. Yeah, cool. Makoto was not fooled. Listen, thanks for coming by, Milo said. I mean that. Gets lonely here. Well then, why not come with us? Makoto asked. Milo froze in place. With you? They asked. Yeah. Makoto smiled. We got scads of room. Our buddy Izuku would love to listen to your story and figure out your meta ability. Dorothy and Mateo could use a break from yours. Makoto slyly showed Milo a picture of the two female androids, getting their attention. And to be honest, it'd be nice to have a fellow connoisseur of culture who live on a beach, meaning we'll see plenty of beautiful ladies. Heck to the yes. Milo cheered, suddenly breaking into cartoonish speed to grab their belongings packed up into a suitcase. We've got a lot of explaining to do when we get back, Chikara said, shaking his head. Tell me about it, Chumba. Rebecca sighed. Katsuki Bakugo was 4 years old when he learned not all men are created equal. He had recently heard from his parents that Izuku, his best friend, was quirkless. Due to having manifested his own quirk, explosion, very recently, Katsuki just brushed Izuku off as hopeless and even occasionally mocked him for still trying to be a hero. That all changed when Auntie Inko and Uncle Sashi came home from a cruise that had ended up in the wrong end of a villain attack and Deku wasn't with them. Katsuki had learned that Izuku had risked his life to save someone, and they had both been lost at sea as a result. This made the blonde rethink his entire philosophy. He may have looked down on Izuku for lacking a quirk, but he never wished him dead. Search parties went out to try and find Izuku, but no leads were made and the case was sadly closed. The grief 𝗏𝗏 and Hisashi showed made Katsuki strive to become something to be proud of, the kind of hero Deku would have been. He would get his chance when, on his 8th birthday, he saw an old man being attacked by a villain. The blonde had rushed in without thinking and hit the villain with his strongest explosion. Of course, it turned out that the old man had everything under control. He was a retired fighter and hadn't dulled his skills in age. But he appreciated the sentiment as he finished off the villain. The man in question was renowned overseas chef and martial artist, Rayleigh 𝗧𝗏. Impressed by Katsuki's courage, 𝗧𝗏 took him on as an apprentice, training him in his ways. He also helped Katsuki out with developing his cooking skills, which he already had impressive displays of even back then. Then, just after his 11th birthday, Katsuki would get another surprise that'd change his life. Devil. The 11-year-old Katsuki Bakugo was relaxing in bed. He was gazing out the dark evening sky as the stars began to appear. Deku, I know in my gut you're not dead. Where the hell are you right now? Suddenly, one star began glowing brighter than normal and seemed to be growing larger. Katsuki got out of bed to see what was going on, before quickly realizing the star was coming closer. Shit. Jumping out of the way just in time, Katsuki took cover as the star crashed into his room. Surprisingly, as the dust began to clear, it didn't seem like much was damaged. Katsuki waved the smoke away as he growled, prepared to give whatever or whoever this was a piece of his mind. Only for his brain to short-circuit the minute he saw a girl standing up from where the star impacted, a naked girl. Horikoshi, Oda, and Toriyama. Put some fucking clothes on. The girl had a petite figure, short bright pink hair, rosy cheeks, and dark blue eyes that seemed to shine like the night sky. She was seemingly confused by Katsuki's flustered reaction, not even seeming to notice or care that she was indecent. Oi, what the hell is going? Mitsuki snapped as she barged in, only to be met with the naked girl in front of her and Katsuki looking at his mother with a face that screamed, I'm just as fucking confused as you are. Poyo. The girl beamed. Devil. The girl's name turned out to be Kirby, and apparently, she was an alien from beyond the stars who had crash-landed on Earth to escape the destruction of her home planet. Rather similar to a certain Man of Steel, but it still checked out. With nowhere to go, Kirby was taken in by the Bakugo family, going under the surname of Sakurai. She and Katsuki, after the awkward first meeting they had, managed to hit it off quite well, and soon, they found themselves as boyfriend and girlfriend. Right now, Katsuki was 14 years old and in his last few months of school at 𝐎𝐪𝐼 Junior High, aka the worst fucking school in Japan. Thank God that Kirby had transferred there to keep him company. There was only so much ass-kissing he could take from the coat-riding extras. Alright, you brats, this is your last year of school and you'll be graduating soon, the homeroom teacher said. Now, I'd hand out these forms of what occupations you'd want, but let's face it, you all want to be heroes. Katsuki just scoffed as the extras showed off their basic bitch quirks. Kirby was just snoring away, having already had her lunch in class as well. God, Katsuki loved how that girl defied the rules while still being so perky and innocent. Oi, teach. Don't bother lumping me and my girl in with these extras. Their quirks couldn't even get them jobs as a sidekick for some D-lister. While he had learned some humility and empathy, especially with 𝗧𝗏 as his mentor, Katsuki was still brash, cocky, and hot-tempered. Naturally, this pissed off everyone in the class. Hey, we have potential too, jerk. Shut the fuck up, all of you. Katsuki snapped. I made a promise to myself that I'd be the kind of hero who would be there for others. The kind of hero who always put others before himself. Just like Deku wanted. That Midoriya kid? Wasn't he quirkless or something? I heard he died on that cruise incident 10 years ago. Meh, one less powerless loser, don't you think? Everyone immediately scooted away from the last person who spoke, who quickly realized what he said and paled as Katsuki loomed over him, a look of murderous rage on his face. The fuck you say? Aye. That damn nerd gave his life to save someone else. Which of you fuckers can say the same? Tell me. All was silent. The offending student looked like he had just pissed himself. Katsuki waited a moment before huffing as he sat back down at his desk, kicking his feet back up. That's what I fucking thought. Only me and Kirby are becoming heroes in this shitty class, and that's all there is to it. Tests, please. Kirby beamed innocently. Devil. After school, Katsuki and Kirby were walking back home together. The pink-haired girl happily skipping alongside her boyfriend while humming a merry song, while the ashen blonde boy merely kept his usual scowl to ward off anybody who would try and bother him and his girlfriend. 𝗧𝗏𝗏. Kirby asked. I know that you don't do speeches about sappy stuff, but... She paused, trying to find the words. Izuku meant a lot to you, right? Katsuki paused mid-stride and shuddered, fighting back tears. He was my friend. My only real friend. Before me? Kirby asked, trying to alleviate the mood, which she did judging by the light chuckle her boyfriend made. Well, you're way more than a friend. Katsuki smirked, before the memories returned. I always thought he was annoying, following me around, praising me, and when I fell once and he tried to help. You thought he was pitying you when he was just that nice? Kirby guessed. Katsuki sighed and nodded. And when he died saving someone on that cruise, it made me think, holy shit, I'm a shitty person. I was going to become a hero just to prove I was the best, while he wanted to help people. And he did without any kind of quirk. Kirby hugged the explosive blonde, patting his head to see. Suddenly, a ringing alerted Katsuki as he took out his phone and checked to see it was a message from his mom, and what he read made his eyes widen in absolute shock and disbelief. What does it say? Kirby asked, looking over her boyfriend's shoulder to read the message. Come quick. Izuku's alive. He's home. Devil. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the city, a young woman was relaxing by herself, just enjoying the day as she left school. What a relief. School today was murder. The girl's name was 𝗧𝗏𝗏. She was a tall, slender young lady with long dark brown hair in a ponytail and blue eyes. She wore a white and pink hat, a white tank shirt that reached her waist underneath a black waistcoat, and a pair of denim shorts with white tear details on them. She wore black wristbands with a small pink stripe on both of them, matching black ankle boots with pink laces and soles, and a pair of black socks underneath. She also carried a pink messenger bag around. 𝗧𝗏 was a spunky, tough girl who was always ready for any challenge thrown her way. She was fearless and competitive as they came, but also compassionate and friendly. Hey, 𝗧𝗏. The girl beamed and turned to see her best friends. The first was a tall, lanky, and unassuming young man with pale skin, curly and unkempt black hair, and a pair of glasses covering hazelnut eyes. The other was a girl with very long dark brown hair tied in two large sock buns above her ears, with two long locks hanging loose to her waist, shorter locks on either side of her face, pale peach skin, and dark blue eyes. She wore a pink and white visor on her head, as well as a salmon pink tank top tied with a bow around her neck like a bikini top under a white quarter-length slim-fit top with ice blue sleeves and a fully salmon pink semi-poke ball printed on the chest area. On her bottom half, she wore frilly flared mustard yellow shorts over black lycra leggings with salmon pink socks. Her high-top shoes were ice blue and white with mustard yellow laces. The boy's name was Benio Torikuroshi, a rather shy and awkward boy who was also a childhood friend of 𝗧𝗏. He always seemed to be off in his own little world at times and never seemed to pay attention in class, yet managed to do very decently all the same. 𝗧𝗏 often suspected that he might be a night owl. The girl was 𝗧𝗏𝗏. She was energetic, adventurous, compassionate, and tended to be a bit slow on the uptake. However, 𝗧𝗏 couldn't ask for a better friend than her. Bianca and Charon are wondering if you're still up to go to the arcade tomorrow after school, then said as 𝗧𝗏 beamed, slinging an arm over his shoulder. Sounds like a blast. I'm sure we'll have lots of fun. Yeah, maybe I'll finally beat Charon's DDR high score. Rosa added. Suddenly, the sound of something crashing alerted both teens as they ran to the source. There, they saw an 8-foot-tall bald man with teal skin and 12 arms. 3 on his left, 3 on his right, and 6 on his back. Holy crap, isn't that Gus the ogre? 𝗧𝗏 exclaimed in shock, recognizing the B rank villain. Crap, that guy's been rising in the villain ranks recently, Ben said. Guys, we gotta alert the authorities. Help. It was then that the two friends noticed that Gus had a family trapped in his arms. A couple of pro heroes were nearby, but they couldn't risk making a move, lest it give the villain incentive to kill the family. Nobody here try anything funny or I'll kill this family. Hilda didn't know what happened. It was as if her legs moved on their own as soon as she saw the family had a scared little child. Ben saw this and looked back and forth before running into a nearby alley, quickly taking off his backpack and pulling something out. Back with Hilda, she picked up a rock and threw it at Gus with the pitching strength of a professional baseball player. The rock hit Gus right in the face, making him scream and let go of the family. Rosa rushed in, taking the opportunity to help guide the family to safety as the pro heroes used the opportunity to jump him. Unfortunately, the multi-armed villain was now pissed off and used 4 of his arms to knock the pros away as easily as swatting some insects. He then glared at Hilda as she got on guard, making a come on gesture. Rosa also turned around and smacked her behind while pulling her eyelid down and sticking out her tongue. "You fucking bitch. I'll kill you." The people witnessing the action watched in shock as Gus charged at Hilda and Rosa like a freight train before unleashing a barrage of punches with all his arms. Gus grinned madly, lost in his rage and bloodlust as blood splatters entered his vision as he rained down a volley of fists with such force it raised a dust cloud around him and Hilda. Finally, after what seemed like hours but was only 5 minutes, the barrage ended. The agonizing scream of pain entered everyone's ears. Only it didn't come from either of the girls. Gus didn't know what happened. As he was calming himself down, he was confident he had just annihilated the little bitches when all of a sudden he felt an agonizing pain in all of his 12 hands. He was able to hold in the scream as he looked at his hands to see if they had been somehow broken. But as he looked down at his hands, his eyes widened in horror as he looked at the bloody, gushing stomps, and this time, he couldn't hold in his scream. Really? Trying to kill a family and then hurt a girl? Not impressed. Gus saw that a hooded man in all black had jumped in front of Hilda and Rosa to protect them, and his eyes widened. He had heard stories of this man, a man who robbed quirks from criminals, abusers, and other malicious kinds of people and gave to the less fortunate. He was like a Robin Hood for quirks and was known by only one name, the Quirk Judge. As Gus fell on his ass and backed away, Hilda huffed as she put her hands on her hips. The Quirk Judge had jumped in front of her and used a quirk that covered himself in unbreakable and sharpened diamonds. "You know I had him, right?" "Yeah, Hilda could have taken him." Rosa pouted. "Didn't look like it from where I was standing." Hilda rolled her eyes but popped her neck from side to side and grinned. "Can I at least kick this creep where the sun doesn't shine?" The Quirk Judge couldn't show his face through the black mask that only had 2 red glaring eye holes, but Hilda could easily tell he was grinning as he nodded. "Be my guest." Grinning, Hilda ran toward Gus and reared her leg back before kicking him square in the nuts, making his eyes bug out before his cheeks bulged. He then spat out a large iron ball that fell in front of his groin as he fell over and didn't get back up, foaming at the mouth. That hurt to even watch. One of the pro heroes winced as he recovered from the blow Gus had given him. "And it's live." Rosa grinned, having recorded the scene on her phone. "Hey, it's that vigilante. Stop right there." The other pro hero said as he noticed the Quirk Judge, who simply snapped his fingers and turned into dark mist, which disappeared soon after. Hilda sighed as the police arrived to detain the crippled and neutered Gus, hauling him away in a prison ambulance. She looked to the nearby rooftops to see the Quirk Judge staring at her and nodding his head before leaving the scene. She and Rosa knew the true identity of the Quirk Judge. It was a closely guarded secret shared between the 3 of them. "Come on, Rosa. Let's go to my place," Hilda said. "Mom's cooking steak tonight." "Goody." As the 2 friends left, they didn't know a certain skeletal blonde man had been watching everything unfold. Those girls rushed in to save that family at the risk of her own life. Yes, I think I have a feeling one of them is the one. Devil. The Quirk Judge had managed to escape to Hilda's house, where he climbed in through the window before removing his clothes and putting them back into the backpack. As it turns out, he was none other than Ben. "Good thing I was there. Hilda's got a good quirk to combat any serious injuries, but she knows I can't take any chances." Rosa's quirk is good too, but still. After getting dressed back in his regular clothes, Ben headed downstairs to greet Hilda's mother, who smiled as she was cooking dinner. "Oh, good afternoon, sweetie." "Hey, Mrs. 𝗧𝗵𝗲. As if right on cue, Hilda and Rosa came in as well. Her mother quickly ran over to check up on her, a fraught look on her face. "Hilda, sweetie. Thank heavens. I saw the news that you challenged a villain by yourself." If that vigilante hadn't been there. Mom, it's cool. I had it all under control. Hilda groaned. Besides, that creep couldn't have been able to kill me even if he wanted to. Hilda's mother just sighed, knowing her daughter was referring to her quirk, optimal condition. They had first learned of the quirk when Hilda was very young, having fallen out of a tree and landed on her head. However, while she did feel pain, there was no skull fracture detected despite the high impact. The quirk doctor immediately got to work and soon came back with the results. Hilda's quirk allowed her to stay in a permanent optimal state of being. This meant that anything that would detriment her person, such as injuries both external and internal, would immediately heal themselves. It wasn't just injuries either, as illnesses, temporary ailments, anything that could cause harm to the body would be undone in seconds. Yeah, and I could have backed Hilda up too. Rosa added. Rosa's own quirk was absorption, which allowed her to absorb and take on the properties of any kind of matter or energy she came into contact with. She could even shapeshift when in a matter-absorbed state. Well, alright. But you can't blame a mother for worrying, alright? Hilda smiled and hugged her mom as Rosa happily jumped in to hug them both. Ben shyly joined in as well, and the three were happy to allow him in. A knock on the door broke the tender moment as Ben went to answer it. As soon as he opened the door, he gawked when he saw a certain symbol of peace standing in front of him. I am here to have an important discussion. All Might. The #1 pro hero of Japan just gave a hearty laugh, as if he had expected this sort of reaction. What brings you here, Mr. All Might, sir? Ms. Takatoya nervously asked, just as freaked out as her daughter and her best friends. I would like to speak with your daughter in private, if you please. And me? Did I do something wrong? Not at all. In fact, I'd like to say I am impressed by what you did today. I'm not following. All Might just put a hand on Hilda's shoulder, his proud smile never wavering. He just seemed to radiate an aura of calm and trust that Hilda immediately relaxed. I was in the area when I saw Gus the ogre holding that family hostage. I was just about to intervene when I noticed you and your friend rushing in and distracting that villain so that the family could escape. Yeah, it was all a blur, I guess. Thank God the quirk judge was there to help. Rosa admitted. All Might nodded. He had heard tales about the quirk judge and understandably had doubts about him, especially since his abilities seemed far too similar to that man. However, what he had heard and now just seen helped ease those doubts. I see. That just makes things easier for me. Hilda Tuko, because you have proven you have the heart of a hero, I have an offer I'd like to make, and I don't make it to just anybody. What do you have in mind? Hilda asked, a little excited now. Was she gonna get a recommendation to any hero school she wanted? I would like you, Tochura. Suddenly, much to Hilda, her mother, Rosa, and Ben's shock, All Might exploded into a cloud of smoke, blood spraying out of his mouth. His entire body had just changed in an instant. Instead of a mountain of muscles, he was now a sickly, gangly-looking man who was almost like a skeleton. His eyes were sunken, but the electric blue irises could still be seen somewhat. And now, Hilda, Rosa, and Ben began freaking out again. Ms. Takatoya had already fainted dead away from shock. What the dash? How dash? Why dash? I have so many questions. All Might sighed. Suppose I should start with the obvious, huh? The skeletal man lifted his shirt, which now looked way too big for him, as the teens winced at a large scar running across the whole left side of his stomach and torso. Ugly, isn't it? I got this 5 years ago facing a dangerous villain. It had my guts spilling out all over it and everything. He put his shirt back down. Luckily, I had a good friend heal up the worst of it, but now I can only be a hero for 5 to 6 hours at a time. What kind of villain was powerful enough to damage you that badly? Ben asked. This villain was only known to me and the people I trust with my life. Even among the higher echelons of the government, the Heroics Committee, and even the SCP Foundation. It's a closely guarded secret. To have your guts hanging loose and still able to win against whatever horrifically powerful villain you were fighting, that must have been something, Hilda noted. Yes, I thankfully had help from Ambrosia and 𝗵𝗃𝗲. Thanks to their powerful healing quirks, I got most of the damage repaired. Still, it was not without its toll, as I've already explained. So, what did you even want to tell us about? Ben asked. Well, when I saw young Hilda risking her life to save that family, I knew immediately she was the one. The one for what? To inherit my power, of course. Wait, what? You can have people inherit your quirk. All Might chuckled. You jumped into action while the rest of us stood idly by. You acted like a true hero out there, a rare attribute in our current society. So, how does this even work? What even is your quirk? Hilda asked. You've always kinda dodged the question during interviews. Because, my girl, like the villain who gave me my injury, my quirk is also a well-guarded secret. You see, I was born quirkless, my power was given to me by another. It is a power that has been cultivated since the dawn of quirks, growing stronger with each new user. All Might then held his hand out, a glowing light emitting from it as Hilda and Ben stared in wonder. The name of this power, the ultimate quirk, is One for All. One for All. Hilda, Rosa, and Ben all whispered in awe. I have been looking for a successor for quite some time now. Even I am not immortal, and I will one day dip out of the hero scene. When that time comes, I will need someone who is ready to take the mantle. All Might explained. But I must warn you, if you choose to accept this, a great gift and a terrible burden will be placed upon you. The three teens looked at each other worriedly, but then their eyes steeled as determination came to the former, turning her head to face the skeletal symbol of peace. I always wanted to be a badass hero, especially since my quirk makes me practically invincible. So if this quirk can help me go even further beyond, let's do it. No hesitation. You remind me of myself when I was your age. All Might smiled. However, with how much power One for All has accumulated, it could very well risk tearing your body apart if you don't know how to properly harness it. No problem. Hilda smiled reassuringly. My quirk, optimal condition, will fix up anything that's broken. All Might was confused until both Hilda and Ben explained the former's quirk to him. After they were done, he was left quite surprised. That is certainly an amazing quirk. It could very easily mesh well with One for All. All Might smiled. I guess both of us lucked out here today, didn't we? You said it. Hilda laughed playfully. Still, I must warn you, invincible and unstoppable are two very different things. Just because you are unable to be hurt or killed doesn't mean you can't still be defeated, after all. Hilda nodded. I know. Mon, you're so lucky, Hilda. Rosa beamed. Devil. This was the one thing Izuku had dreaded the most since he returned home to Japan. He was standing in front of his family house. He at least was grateful that his friends had accompanied him to provide emotional support. Well, knock on the door, Kazuya said. It's been 10 years. Izuku reminded them, half wanting to delay this, but half wanting to get them to see how hard this was for him. Well, we aren't waiting. And neither should you. Kahaku huffed. What if they moved and this isn't? The green-haired boy started. Then we'll find them. Marco argued, annoyingly pointing to the door. No. Knock. With a sigh, Izuku did just that. After a tense few moments of waiting, the door opened, and there was no one. A cute voice cooed. They all looked down to see a little girl, no older than 6, looking up at them. Hi there. Is this where Inko and Hisashi Midoriya live? Izuku managed to ask. The little girl looked up at him, then took a deep breath, her eyes still focused on him before she quickly spun around. Hey, Mommy. There's a bunch of big kids at the door, and one of them looks like Daddy if he had your eyes and hair. Whoa, wait. What the heck? Izuku cried as he tried to stop the child, only to be greeted by 2 familiar faces. Kamiko, please don't answer the door without. Izuku could only stare at his parents, who he hadn't seen in 10 long years. Inko had put on quite a bit of weight, and Hisashi looked a bit more haggard, complete with a heavy amount of stubble on his face. Despite this, Izuku still recognized them all the same. 𝗧𝗵𝗲, been a long time? Devil. It had taken over 3 hours of crying between the Midoriyas before anybody could speak. Who knew their tear ducts were so powerful? Chikara asked in some amusement and much concern, as he and Sumiko used their meta abilities based on King and Merlin's Disaster and Infinity to restore the water damage. Have you forgotten when our training started? Sumiko smiled at the family sweetly, then recalled the crybaby Izuku had been despite his determination. They have every right to sob, Kazuya said, ending the conversation. It certainly moved my heart, even though I technically don't have one, being a Grim Reaper. Milo giggled. Yato and Makoto lightly chuckled as well. Eventually recomposing themselves, Hisashi and Inko gave their son a rundown on what had happened after he and Hibiki went overboard. Selkie had searched for days before being ordered to pursue the world pirates, whom he successfully caught. Samwon Wolf was still at large to this day, literally and figuratively, but his bounty had been increased by 300,000 yen for the death of Izuku. Aside from the Bakugo family, nobody else had given Izuku much thought, some even suggesting Inko and Hisashi try and have a kid who had a quirk. And long story short, I got fired after hearing that one too many times, Hisashi admitted with a chuckle. Honey, you punched your coworker so hard that he's still eating through a straw. Inko clarified. I don't care. Yup, you're Izuku's dad, alright, Yato smirked. Honestly, I'd have done the same. He was a meanie, and he got hurt. Kamiko beamed, once again hugging her big brother. Kacchan talked about you a lot, Izumi. He missed you. Izuku smiled and returned the hug. Already, he had come to bond with the little sister he had only just gotten to know. And about 5 years ago, Kamiko here came along, Inko admitted. She was a surprise, but one I think we needed and adore. No kidding, how can one little girl be so freaking adorable? Kahaku asked. Suddenly, a large explosion and the sound of a door being ripped off its hinges were heard, startling everyone before an angry voice roared out. Where is he? Where the fuck is he? Everyone jumped when the front door was blasted down and turned to see a young man with spiky ash-blonde hair, crimson eyes, and smoke steaming off his hands. Katsuki, you brat. We told you not to do that anymore. Mitsuki's voice was heard as the boy paid her no mind before looking Izuku dead in the eye. Kacchan. Kamiko greeted happily, running to hug the blonde boy, only to pause when she realized he was paying her no mind. Kacchan dash? Izuku started, but he couldn't even finish his sentence when Katsuki suddenly kicked him square in the face, sending him flying into the wall. Izuku's friends all prepared for a fight before Izuku suddenly rushed forward, having instantly recovered from the blow and headbutt his old friend in the stomach. Is that any way to greet a friend you haven't seen in forever? Izuku smirked, even wiping his lip. That kick had felt like one of Kahaku's regular hits. Fuck you, you shitty diggy. Katsuki snapped. You don't go disappearing for 10 straight fucking years and then come back not expecting that. The two boys glared at each other before tears began welling up in their eyes, followed by them hugging each other. I missed you. They managed. I missed you more. Is that Kacchan's friend? A girl with pink hair asked as Mitsuki and Masaru came in after Katsuki. Yes, Kirby. That's him, Masaru said, taking off his glasses to clear the budding tears of joy from his eyes. What are we? Invisible? Shun asked bluntly as Makoto elbowed him. Let them have this moment, man. Read the room, Shun. Kahaku hissed through her teeth. Izuku took the time to introduce his friends, and Katsuki in return introduced Kirby to Izuku. Needless to say, Izuku was quite surprised by this. How the hell did you manage to get a girlfriend, Kacchan? Would you believe me that she fell from outer space and could only say Poyo for the first couple of weeks she lived with us? Thank goodness she's shown to be such a fast learner. Mitsuki laughed, ruffling Kirby's head as she smiled. Not to mention her appetite. She put me and Inko to work, but it's a good thing she was such a good big sis to little Kamiko. Devil. Everyone had sat down for lunch while Yato and Katsuki found themselves getting into an epic cooking contest to see who could cook better. Eat shit, ban hands. I've learned the best from Rayleigh himself. Well, let's see if passed down knowledge can beat self-taught knowledge. When the two boys were finished, they presented their dishes to everyone. Katsuki had made African ramen while Yato had cooked up hard crab with fried beach rice. Yummy. Kamiko mewed happily as she tried both dishes, which only radiated an aura of cuteness toward everyone. Well, I'd say both of you boys are plenty talented. Inko giggled. You know, Rayleigh told me about Zeph. They met a few times back in the day. Izuku said as he helped himself to both dishes as well. These hands are made for exploding stuff with my quirk, but Zeph taught me how to work with my legs as well. Katsuki smirked proudly. All in all, everyone had a wonderful time, the mood of the Midoriya household having finally lifted after so long without their son. And he and his friends still had many stories to tell them. Well, I certainly wasn't expecting this. All Might was quite surprised to see that Dagobah Municipal Beach, which he had intended to be a sort of training ground for Hilda to build up her body for the power of One for All, was completely spotless. What's more, there seemed to be a large pirate ship of some kind along with a nice-looking summer house. Whoever cleaned up this beach certainly knows what they're doing. Hilda said, "Do you have any other plans for how Hilda can get your quirk?" Ben asked Toshinori as the skeletal man rubbed the back of his head, trying to think of something. "Excuse me." The three turned to see a beautiful woman with long golden blonde hair dressed in a black fur coat with an astrakhan hat of the same color. "I am Maytel, housekeeper of the residence, you see. If you'd follow me, the children will be happy and able to answer all questions." The group wandered inside and found Izuku, Marco, Milo, and the Seraphim working out. What stood out was that the weights were the size and weight of small cars. New life goals unlocked. Hilda beamed. "I don't want to get on their bad sides." Ben whistled. "Whoa." Rose's eyes sparkled as she saw Rebecca tinkering with her cybernetics. "She's a cyborg." "Oh hey, welcome to our humble base of operations." Yato greeted as he put his weights down. "Apologies for our intrusion, but we kinda thought this beach was still a massive dump," Ben said. "See, our teacher here had hoped we could clean it up to help train for the entrance exam, but that's not an option anymore, it seems." "Well, come on in, and don't worry." Izuku smiled reassuringly. "We'll be glad to help out. We have plenty of things to build up muscle." "Yeah, especially if it's All Might," Shun said, pointing to Toshinori. All activity in the area paused, everyone literally in mid-stride. "Wait, what?" Izuku flatly asked. "Yeah, that guy, he's All Might," Shun said as if it was obvious. "Welp, might as well." Toshinori shrugged, bulking up. "I am here." And just like that, the dam broke for Izuku. "Can I have your autograph?" Izuku, eyes gleaming, begged desperately. "I didn't get it when you came to apprehend that sludge villain the other day." How did he know he was All Might?" Ben nervously asked. "My meta ability, invasion," Shun said. "Shun, we discussed this." Sumiko sighed. "No invading people's minds. Unless they're a villain. In which case, go nuts." Chikara added, getting glares from the others. "Hey, Izuku was the one who said it first." All Might froze at that name. "Wait, Izuku?" "As in Izuku Midoriya?" Izuku, feeling the pros' eyes on him, turned around shyly. Yes." No one was expecting the great hero to fall to his knees in a 𝗔𝗂𝐬𝐵 position. "Please forgive me. I tried to keep searching for you after Sanwan Wolf attacked your ship, but after 3 weeks I was forced back to Japan and no, that is no excuse. I do not expect your forgiveness." Izuku, though surprised at this, simply smiled as he gestured for his idol to stand up. "The fact that you looked for 3 weeks when most gave up after 3 days proves you truly are the greatest hero of all." All Might couldn't help but smile gratefully, wiping the budding tears from his eyes. "Well, all's well that ends well, I suppose," Ben said, nodding his head. "Indeed. And do not worry, your secret is safe with us," Maytel said, pulling gently on Shun's ear. "Right, Shun?" "Yeah, Mom." The Seraphim of Lust sighed. The kids then talked amongst themselves, with Ben quickly bonding with Izuku, whose analysis he'd wished he'd had during his earlier Quirk Judge adventures, while the girls talked about some of the crazy misadventures they'd gone on. "Say, may I see your panties?" Milo asked with a smirk before being smacked upside the head by Sumiko. "What have we told you about introducing yourself to girls like that?" The Seraphim of Gluttony admonished. Milo, who had spun around from the force of the slap, simply struck a flamboyant pose. "You can't get with these moves." Hilda and Rosa clapped at Milo's performance, the Reaper giving a bow. Dorothy made her was over to All Might and looked at his training plan. "While I understand the rush, this is incredibly unhealthy and difficult," she mused. "Not impossible, mind you." All Might lowered his head. "Why, yes, I know. My apologies. I was something of a natural with my quirk, so I may have overthought this." Hilda, Rose, and Ben overlooked the schedule, and Ben at least started getting dizzy. "Oh lordy lord," he managed. "Say, idea." Hilda snapped her fingers. What if I upped my weight? This took everyone for a loop, but also snapped Ben out of his dizzy spell. Well, my quirk does keep me in perfect physical health, but if I gained the weight of, say, a sumo wrestler, my quirk would have more to work with and one for all could blend in seamlessly. Right. A minute of silence covered the room. That could work. Izuku and All Might mused. Hilda, you genius. Rosa grinned. And if you're fattening up, then so am I. Wait, what dash? Ben shook his head in surprise. Are you serious? Are you sure you want to be doing that? The added bulk mixed with her quirk will help me handle one for all better. Hilda said as if it was the most obvious thing in the world as Rosa snuck behind the boy. That and we know about your BBW collection. Ben blushed but remained silent. Just as long as you're both packing on muscle as well, we'll be more than happy to help. Sumiko smirked as she walked over. Yato can cook up a mean feast just for you. But there's still so much to consider. Ben said. You'll be changing your bodies and dash. Ben, relax. Hilda said, putting a finger to his lips. My quirk will make sure I stay healthy enough and besides, it's like Sumiko here said, we'll be putting on muscle as well. Well, as long as you have a clear goal in mind, Toshinori noted. Just be sure to balance things out, my girl. No problem, All Might. We've got everything under control. Rosa said, giving a salute. So you like big girls, huh? Kinky. Makoto chuckled, patting Ben on the back. Shut up. Been a while since I flexed my cooking muscles. Yato smirked. Bring it on. The training arc starts now. Heck yeah. Rosa cheered along with Kahaku and Rebecca. Devil. A few weeks after joining Izuku's crew in training, Hilda unwrapped the king-size chocolate bar and bit into it, savoring the sweet, milky taste while Rosa happily stuffed her face with donuts. Ben was sucking on a jawbreaker lollipop as he watched his best friends enjoy themselves. Not much progress has been made. Hey, this takes time, okay? Hilda laughed. It's not gonna happen instantaneously like in those cartoons. Even if we wish it could. Rosa added with a giggle. Ben rolled his eyes. True. Hey guys. Hearing the familiar voice, the two turned to see Izuku and Kahaku approaching them. Yo, what are you guys doing today? Hilda smiled. Just buying groceries. You'd be amazed at how much food we go through in a day alone. Kahaku giggled. Huh, better start buying extra. I might be getting some good eats there myself. Hilda, we shouldn't impose. Ben muttered, only to be elbowed in the side gently. Lighten up, Ben. If Rosa and I are gonna be ready to get one for all, I'm gonna need a lot more weight. We've got plenty of equipment for building up muscle too. Izuku pointed out. We'll have your ideal body in no time as long as you follow our lead. Alright, then let's do this. Hilda cheered as she took a hard bite of her chocolate. Devil. Month 3. Man, it's only been 2 months since we started and she's gained so much. Ben thought with a small blush as he and Hilda went out for ice cream, being joined by Katsuki and Kirby on a double date as the pink-haired girl liked to call it. I'd say I'm making some really good progress, Hilda said, licking her lips. Thanks to her constant binging, the once slim woman had swelled up quite a bit in the past 2 months. Her short shorts had ridden up, trying to contain the sizable layer of flab that was her stomach. It stuck out from the rest of her by nearly an entire foot, pushing out past her shirt and giving anyone around her a good look at the jiggling mass of chub. Of course, that wasn't to say the rest of her was lacking in growth. She'd gone up by at least 2 cup sizes since she'd started gaining, and her ass was looking much rounder than before. Laying beneath these bountiful buns were a set of thickened thighs, now double the size of their former selves. Even her arms seemed to have been affected, now sporting an entire layer of flab around themselves. Most women would be concerned about gaining this much weight, but Hilda couldn't care less. Honestly, Ben admired that about his best friend. She never let much bother her unless it was serious. It's mostly just fat right now, stay puffed? Katsuki pointed out. You gotta start putting in more work if you want to handle All Might's quirk. Katsuki and Kirby, being considered members of Izuku's crew since the former was his old childhood friend, had been let in on All Might's secret and thankfully had sworn themselves to secrecy, though Katsuki was still floored that All Might, whom he admired just as much as Izuku, had been left in such a weakened state. I know. Hilda laughed reassuringly. Trust me, you guys have been helping out a lot. But I gotta eat to make sure I'm balanced out. Just don't try overdoing it to the point that you're a huge fucking blob. Katsuki snarked. Only Kirby's able to eat an entire country's worth of food and not gain a single pound from it. That's because my stomach is an entirely separate and endless dimension of reality. Hilda and Ben looked at the pink-haired girl from outer space as she said that. Only Katsuki wasn't fazed by her words, as if he already knew this. Really? Ben gawked. Yeah, when we were getting her registered and checked up to make her an official citizen in Japan, the doctors did some tests and her stomach is an honest goddamn black hole. Katsuki dryly clarified. So you never feel full? Hilda muttered. Talk about getting your money's worth at an all-you-can-eat buffet, though. Shame Rosa couldn't join us, but she wanted to gain weight in that ramen contest, Hibiki noted. Plus, she wanted the extra money to buy even more donuts. That girl loves donuts like Kirby loves. Well, everything, Katsuki smirked. Hey, it's not my fault all the food is so yummy. Devil. Month 5. It was a bright sunny day, perfect for 𝐭𝐲𝐲 to channel the power of the sunshine to help with training Hilda while Chikara and Toshinori stood watch as referees. Maytel and Dorothy were also there with water bottles handy. Rosa was acting as a cheerleader while Rebecca was just chugging a can of soda casually, and Milo was recording the spar on their phone. Wow, 𝗵𝐻𝗄𝐲, you're pretty strong. The boy, currently in his giant muscular form, nodded his head with a prideful smile as the two locked hands. The heat his body was producing made Hilda sweat, but she persevered. Eventually, 𝗵𝐻𝗄𝐲 managed to get the upper hand, and with a hard flex of his muscles, he managed to bring Hilda down. Guess I still have a long way to go, huh? She asked, chuckling to herself. And you shall, 𝗵𝐻𝗄𝐲 said, a smirk on his face. Any friend and ally of our crew will come to reach a level close to us. Hilda smiled as she patted her belly. She was at least triple the size she'd first started at. Her body had grown, not just in weight, but in width, as if to accommodate her growth. Her stomach, which had already been round and flabby, had now expanded to become the largest part of her body. It stuck out nearly 3 feet and was now so large that it covered her crotch. Resting atop this enormous gut lay her breasts, which had undergone similar growths. No longer the flat size they'd once been. Hilda's bosom had blossomed into a beautiful rack. They were easily within the E-cup range by this point, and both were soft to the touch. It was safe to say that most of Hilda's weight had been distributed fairly evenly. Her breasts and belly were developing nicely, and her flabbier arms remained as firm and active as ever thanks to her training. But of the newfound additions brought on by her weight, her bottom half had easily changed the most. Hilda's butt was massive, now large enough that each cheek more resembled massive globes. Her round, enviably enormous rear was supported by a set of glorious, tree-trunk-sized thighs, made all the more obvious whenever she so much as took a step. It was safe to say that Hilda was getting to be the talk of the town with how much she was porking up, but she didn't mind that. Man, you're so soft and squishy but firm and tough too. Kirby giggled as she snuggled up to Hilda, who smiled as she took a bite out of some taiyaki. You're so cool, Hilda. Rosa smiled as she came over. Like Hilda, she had porked up by a wide margin as well. She was round as a ball now. Her belly had grown so much that her waist resembled a muffin top. Her face had also become softer and rounder. Suffice it to say, both ladies were quite large and lovely now. You kids have certainly been putting in the work, Toshinori noted. I know we still have a few more months to go before the UA entrance exam, but I feel like you're prepared to take the next step. 𝗵𝐻𝗄𝐲 shrunk down to his normal skinny self as Hilda and Rosa looked excited. Izuku also took notice as he and the rest of the crew came over. Is it time? You think we're ready to inherit your quirk now? Let's not be too hasty, my girl. But yes, I think now is the time to up your training, especially since you've certainly been packing it on. Toshinori chuckled. Now, I need to be clear with you all. There are 2 important factors in passing on one for all. First is that the current holder must want to pass it on. That's already covered, of course. The second is that the one inheriting the quirk must swallow a sample of the holder's DNA. Toshinori then took out a small pocket knife and cut his finger, letting some blood drip into a jug of lemonade, which he then poured into a cup for Hilda to drink. Despite a bit of uncertainty, She took a deep breath and chugged the lemonade down. Almost immediately, the big girl began feeling the effects, energy flowing through her body. She could feel the muscles underneath her flab hardening as steam started to come off. Oh, tingly. Hilda giggled before checking herself. I don't feel any different. Well, from the look of things, the quirk seems to be agreeing with you too for the most part, Tashinori noted. Still, remember what I said in that it could be dangerous to handle the power of one for all carelessly, as it could damage your body if you don't harness it correctly. I think we can help out, Shun said before pausing. Yet, I can't help but sense something inside you girls now. Shun curiously put a hand on Hilda's blubbery bicep and used invasion to enter her mind. Within one for all. He soon found himself in some dark, swirling void. Who are you? A mysterious voice spoke up. I am Shun. A seraphim created by Dr. Vegapunk modeled after the goat sin of lust, 𝐕. Shun introduced. And you are? A skinny man with snow-white hair and tired-looking eyes stepped out of the shadows. He smiled as he offered his hand for a shake. Pleasure to meet you. Don't exactly know how you ended up here, but I've read stories about the 7 deadly sins and their exploits, so you being modeled after 𝗬𝗲 makes sense. The man greeted. My name is 𝐎𝐻𝑖 Shigaraki, the very first user of One for All. I see. I ended up coming in here to try and help my friend Hilda, the new current holder of the power, learn how to harness it properly without hurting herself. Shun explained. What is this place? This is the Vestige Realm, 𝐎𝐻𝑖 said. It's where the spirits of the wielders of One for All go when they die. Well, we're also in heaven, but a small part of us stayed here to help guide future generations. Fascinating. So this is connected to both the living world and the afterlife in a sense? Well, yeah. Quirks are both physical abilities and connected to the soul, so even when we move on, our souls can return here in a spiritual sense if our quirks are still inside something else, or someone else. I don't follow. You and your friends will understand in due time. Another voice spoke up as Shun and 𝐎𝐻𝑖 turned to see a rough-looking man with salmon pink hair walk in. But in the meantime, your little mind trick ended up waking us up. Though we were already getting there since your friend managed to hit singularity with One for All. I see. How fascinating, Shun noted. Well, you helped jumpstart things along, so we'll help ninth from here. A jovial woman's voice spoke up as a beautiful lady with black hair and dressed in a hero costume with a white cape stepped in. You don't need to worry, we'll take care of everything. All right. Shun muttered as he bid the 3 farewell and left the Vestige Realm, returning to the physical plane. What a funny kid. A man with a shaved head, stubble, and a bandolier of bullets said as he came in next. Then again, all those kids our new successor is friends with are pretty charming too. Still, ninth's best friend. A man with cadet gray hair and a spiked ponytail and wearing a headband muttered as he stepped in. His power, it's way too similar to him for my liking. We saw and heard what he could do through Toshi's eyes and ears, the woman said. But from what we can see now from ninth, he's a good kid. I say we give him the benefit of the doubt. Nana is correct, Bruce. 𝐎𝐻𝑖 voiced his agreement. If the one known as Benio Torokuroshi is related to my brother, then I dare say the apple fell so far from the tree, it instantly made its way to the market. That idiom didn't even make any sense, Bruce grumbled. Your look doesn't make any sense. The silent one in a costume that must have inspired best Gina snapped. An awkward silence fell over the Vestige Realm as a man with stark white hair and a lightning bolt scar sighed. I just wanted to be included. Real world. Back with Shun, he shook off the daze he felt as everyone looked at him curiously. What happened? Yato asked. You just kinda blacked out for a second there. I was in this void, and then these people came out, saying they were the previous holders of One for All. I think they told me they'd be helping Hilda and Rosa master their new power. Tashinori's eyes widened. The previous holders. Was one of them a woman with black hair? Yes. Sensei. Tashinori whispered before shaking his head. Well, even if the previous holders of One for All are planning to help, we here still need to set up a plan for young Whitelane to learn how to control it throughout her whole body. I'm ready. Hilda cheered, bumping hammy fists with Rosa, who grinned back. Suddenly, a loud growl echoed through the beach as the 2 plump girls blushed. Yeah, I think I'm gonna need a feast after all that training, Hilda said. I could eat a buffet out of business if I wanted to, Rosa added. Well, let's not keep you hungry girls waiting. Yato smirked. Watch me show my cooking magic. Hey, cook something up for the rest of us, you asshat. Rebecca barked. Devil. Month 6. Are you sure about this, young Midoriya? Toshinori asked as he had been invited to the beach house for a special reason. See, Izuku and his friends figured they could help heal his injury after he showed it to them. Considering some of their abilities, it made the most sense that they could help the symbol of peace with his burden. Currently, Chikara had turned his pillow, which just so happened to be the sealed form of the sacred spear, 𝗧𝗪𝗡, into its 8th form, Pollen Garden, forming a barrier around Toshinori that was very slowly healing him as he lay on a medical bed. Just trust me, All Might, Izuku said with a reassuring smile. Besides, what do you have to lose? Toshinori's sweat dropped before Shun used invasion to put him to sleep. Izuku then put on a pair of surgical gloves as Dorothy and Maytel came over, wearing surgical masks as Izuku got to work, harnessing the power of the 𝗵𝗃𝗃 fruit for what he had to do. Okay, time to put those lessons Dr. Vegapunk gave me to the test. The operation took 25 minutes and an extra 5 minutes as Izuku used the heal fruit to heal Toshinori's last wound, Marco joining in and applying some water, which had healing properties, just to be safe. With everything done, Chikara dispelled Pollen Garden as Toshinori slowly came to. The symbol of peace felt the area where his scar once was to see pale, healthy flesh. Tears began welling up in his eyes before he pulled Izuku into a tight hug. Thank you, my boy. I couldn't have asked for anything more. Izuku's brain nearly went into blue screen over being hugged by his idol, while Chikara just chuckled and gave Marco a high five. Maytel and Dorothy also had tiny smiles on their faces before a loud growl came from Toshinori's stomach as he winced. Ambrosia and 𝗵𝗃𝗃 managed to heal most of my stomach, but now that all my wounds are gone. He chuckled as he turned to Izuku. How about we head to Big Bang Burger? My treat. Later, Izuku was amazed at how much Toshinori could put away. For a skinny guy, he had a pretty bottomless stomach. Then again, with his stomach fully regenerated, he could make do. Devil. Month 8. Alright. 2 more months, till the entrance exam. I am so ready. Izuku smiled as the whole crew decided to hit the town after another rigorous day of training. Hilda had managed to learn how to harness a decent amount of One for All, currently being able to use 5% of its full power. The upside of being big and beautiful is that I can tank the backlash, Hilda smirked. Well, I mean, I could already. Hilda, just enjoy yourself. Rosa beamed, hugging her friend. But yeah, you got that right. Besides, we can now see the real beans of culture, not that Benny has any competition. Lucky bastard. Yato, Chikara, and Makoto smiled playfully at their bespectacled friend and brother in training. So, how's it feel to have your fantasy come to life? Sumiko teased Ben as she looked over at him, seeing how bright red his normally pale face was. It's fine. Still, I never thought I'd find anybody with an appetite bigger than mine. Kirby giggled. And yet she's still so undeniably gorgeous. Makoto added. I could stare at that ginormous ass all day. Makoto, it's always ass and breasts this and that. Yato chided. The real treasure is the absolute territory. Bountiful bottom, enviable breasts, endearingly chubby cheeks, marshmallowy yet firm biceps. Milo said. Truly, Hilda is a beautiful specimen of a woman if I ever saw one. Give it a rest. Katsuki scoffed. Rosa's winning part is her belly, hands down. Kahaku giggled. It just looks so soft and comforting. It could be used to help people go to sleep. Yeah, and she's been beefing harder than Hilda. Sumiko smirked. Seriously, that girl ate a 20-inch sandwich like it was nothing. Guys, come on, you're embarrassing us. Rosa giggled as she and Hilda's chubby cheeks blushed. Izuku just smiled as he listened to his friends' banter. In just 2 more months, they'd all be ready to go to UA. It felt like a dream come true, and to think he thought his dreams would never be reached due to being quirkless. Who knew getting shipwrecked and washing up on a remote island would change his fortune and grant him so many amazing friends?